My first year of Halloween Horror Nights was in 2011 at the age of 11. Every year since, me and my father made a tradition of it to visit a minimum of 4 days a year with the Rush of Fear Pass. With that miniature introduction, I am proud to introduce a list based off of biased decision-making and retrospective views and opinions. This is Universal Studios Orlando, Florida's Halloween Horror Nights Top 10 Haunted Houses of the 2010s. What a long-ass title. Kicking it off at number 10 is 2017's Ash vs. Evil Dead, based off of the first 2 seasons of the hit Starz TV series that serves as a sequel to the classic Evil Dead franchise. This would be higher on the list if the house itself wasn't so jumbled and followed the events of the series clearer and more precisely in the proper order. Besides that, the house was full of the Ghost Speeder's greatest foes, including Henrietta, Eligos, and Ruby's demon spawn. Ash's signature Delta serves as the first sight into the world of Evil Dead, and the house ends with a chainsaw-wielding Ashy Slashy enjoying life in Jacksonville, Florida, sporting his best Hawaiian shirt. Number 9 is a surprisingly engaging and accurate depiction of one of survival horror's most influential gaming series, Silent Hill. In 2012, Welcome to Silent Hill recreated the foggy town and its otherworld counterpart. Pyramid Head was joined by creatures featured in not only the classic games and Downpour, but ones that took center stage in the Silent Hill movies. A Halloween Horror Nights classic move that appears in a couple more houses featured on this list. There was a room full of twitchy nurches where you are unaware of which ones are scare actors. But considering this was 7 years ago, my memory is a little fuzzy on specific details apart from an entrance that features the Silent Hill sign, barbed wire walls, and the legendary siren that signals the oncoming otherworld. As shocking as it may seem, number 8 is another house based off of a TV series that in itself is a retelling of a cult classic Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino movie, 2014's From Dusk Till Dawn. And what an opening note when you walk in to see the entrance to the Titty Twister bar and the ultra-vulgar Chet. The entirety of the house takes place within the bar and features the Calibra vampires, as expected. With some of the first rooms featuring curtains and shadows of the dancing vampires before they swing the curtains open to reveal the hideous monstrosities themselves. What was so special about the entirety of the walkthrough was the adherence to the source material, atmosphere, and of course makeup that perfectly resembled the on-screen portrayals of the Calibras. This next entry is a Halloween Horror Nights original, and sadly, the only original to appear on this list. Number 7 is 2018's Dead Exposure, Patient Zero. And let me specify that on opening night, especially during the first few hours, there was no way at all you could see in its entirety apart from strobe lights. Later on they improved lighting to the point you could at least see where you were walking, but that took away the disorienting effect where I genuinely stumbled at some points and nearly walked into the scare actors' passageways. For this being the only time out of 9 years of experience that this occurred to me, and how many zombies were present at once, and for the environment that was created, honestly, this should be higher on the list, considerably the top 3. The only problem is it didn't strike a nostalgic feeling that licensed properties hold, and while that isn't the house at fault, it unfortunately holds a near-perfect experience back. However, the journey through the quarantined streets of Paris and avoiding the fast-moving zombies that are reminiscent of World War Z was a fright fest I'll never forget. The third and final TV series to appear on this list. Take a wild guess as to what it is. Nope, it is not Stranger Things. Don't get me started on discussing the mistakes from this year's Stranger Things Maze of Boredom. Number 6 is American Horror Story, specifically 2016's house that features seasons 1, 4, and 5, Murder House, Freak Show, and Hotel. I had difficulties remembering whether 2017's AHS collage of Asylum, Coven, and Roanoke was better or not, but it is clear to me now the former is superior. What may come as a shock is I am personally not a fan of the TV show. I never have been, and I found Murder House to be a complete drag of a season. I have not finished Asylum and did not bother touching on any of the other numerous seasons. Due to all of this, believe me when I exclaim that the HHN crew did not screw up on this marvelous recreation, and they presented it with flying colors. Murder House was faithfully executed, Freak Show was a walk between the many displays of carnival freaks, and Hotel was, from what I imagine, to be a decently showed-off experience. But what matters to people who have not seen the show itself is that it can prove to freak them out, and boy did some moments catch me off guard. Now, I'm not a screamer, because I'm not a pansy, but jump scares are jump scares, and my heart can flutter in surprise. If you thought any of the previous entries were humdingers, wait till you get a load of number 5. 2013's An American Werewolf in London was such a popular haunted house, it was reintroduced just 2 years later. Albeit old, now predictable, and unchanged apart from an addition of one werewolf, the house's second coming was not as warm a welcome as some may have hoped for. But from the very first step taken back in 2013, 13-year-old me was utterly unnerved having to even glance in the direction of the werewolves. To avoid movie spoilers, here is a brief description from the house I have the best memory of. Starting from the beginning of the movie in the pub, you walk through it, then you walk through a recreation of the mauling scene, onward to Crazy David's nightmares and movie theater happenings. Cue transformation scene. London dude blows his whistles in the street, while werewolf attacks before the werewolf decides to stalk his prey in the London underground. Then before you know it, you're in an alley and dumpster hairy man growls in your face. I think I did a good enough job. You know that classic 70s horror movie that defined a subgenre of horror that takes place in your small town neighborhood? Well, that movie is number 4. 2014's Halloween was a slasher fan's wet dream, with Michael Myers jumping out around every corner with that simplistic score by the distinguished director, John Carpenter. The one thing you got to glance at while in the line queue was the intimidating Myers house with the lone carved pumpkin as you waited with hundreds of moronic man-children to be cleaved by William Shatner's distorted face. You know that scene with the teen in the car? Well, that's here. What about that teen who gets impaled against the wall? That's here too! And a special surprise for all you Silver Shamrock fans. Kids displaying Halloween 3's mind-melting masks makes a minor appearance, along with the infamous TV program associated with Season of the Witch. If you're a fan of The Man Who's Not a Man, I hope you did not miss your opportunity to live out the horrific tragedy that had befallen Haddonfield, Illinois. Here we are, the top 3. Which house has prevailed at number 1? Stay tuned to find out. And number 3 is a terrifyingly gruesome Evil Dead. This 2013 Gore Fest accompanied the 2013 Gore Fest remake of the Gore Fest original film The Evil Dead. If you found yourself disappointed by the remake of Sam Raimi's horror classic, well, I don't understand you. But if you found this house to be incredibly disappointing and undeserving of a top slot on a Halloween Horror Nights list, then I presume that no one understands you. Beginning with a translation of the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, or in other words, the Naturam Demento, and pages depicting dreadful pictures and incantations that bring the horrific deadites to life, the house takes you through the possession of every character in their self-mutilating endeavors, before ending with the blood-soaked Mia revving up a chainsaw in front of the iconic cabin in the woods. Number 2, to not be confused with using the restroom, is not only the most near and dear to me, but also assisted in my discovery of what I revere to be a masterpiece in cinema and is my personal favorite movie of all time. 2011's The Thing. Derived from John Carpenter's 1982 magnum opus and the 2011 prequel, The Thing, embodies the very essence of true horror. When you have an alien creature that can assimilate with the cells of other beings and can therefore morph into them, the possibilities are damn near endless for what you could do with it. Seeing as though this was 8 years ago when I was 11 years old, I can only recall select snippets. One of the first, if not the very first scare, was around a left corner where there was the split face thing hanging upside down in its full glory. And the only other memory I have is what I assume was either tunnels or the alien ship with strobe lights and things appearing on both sides. I wish I could find video of the Orlando walkthrough to refresh my memory, but I cannot. If you could find a link, preferably to a YouTube video and not a virus-infested website, please leave it in the comments. Wrapping up this list is the ultimate Halloween Horror Nights decade-defining work of art. 2016's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This house never had to wait. You could essentially walk right in within 5 minutes. So imagine my pleasure when I walked right in and out repeatedly, every time with satisfying results. The smell of the house was of rotting flesh, sounds of Leatherface slamming that metal door and chainsawing like a madman against the windows, blood spraying on every passing soul, the entire Sawyer family on a complete rampage. That's what this felt like. Being in the middle of a redneck cannibalistic household in the middle of nowhere. And the horrors did not cease upon going outside. It continued in the Sawyer's backyard with a dead Franklin in a wheelchair and a heavily grunting Leatherface. There's many reasons as to why Texas Chainsaw receives the #1 placement, and that is because everything was so damn right. Here are a couple honorable mentions that nearly made the cut. 2013's Cabin in the Woods. 2018's Slaughter Cinema. And in memoriam of my very first exposure to HHN, 2011's Winter's Night, The Haunting of Hawthorne Cemetery. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for future Halloween Horror Nights top 10 videos of the decade, including top 10 worst haunted houses of 2010s, and top 10 most disappointing haunted houses of the 2010s.